Okay, now we're live again. Okay, so hi everyone. Again, my apologies for that a bit of technical difficulty earlier for my live. And let's fix the view. Okay. Okay. So as I talked about earlier, so we were talking about the the coffees. Okay. So the coffees earlier that I showed to you is actually coffee from Vietnam. And it's known for its nutty and then that brown sugar flavor. So earlier, so hi everyone. So hi, good afternoon, Brian, Paul, and Chot Salmo. Hi, good afternoon. My apologies for the technical difficulty earlier. Okay, so I wanna, if you have any questions, please comment down below. I wanna. My apologies for the technical difficulty earlier. Okay. So I noticed one of the questions is how much is the machine? So this machine I purchased it at 40K. It's like buying a new PlayStation console, honestly. But the drinks that the drinks that you can make with this machine is a lot now. So you can make espressos, lattes, americanos, even mocha, ristretto, lungo, and so much more. And one other thing, when you're trying to buy this machine, the salesperson would recommend you actually to not put light roasted coffees the with this machine because just to simply say that it cannot handle it daw. Sabi. So I've asked some baristas and some other people na I know who owns the same machine as mine. So what they said is it can actually grind, and it's not true. It can actually grind light roasted coffees. For you to know if it can grind light roasted coffees is you have to study the burrs. What I'm meaning the burrs is what's the grinder burrs made of? Is it made of ceramic? Is it made of stainless steel? Or nitro blade, just like in Comandante? So those are the things that you have to check when you're seeing grinders. So if you haven't seen a Comandante, this is what actually looks like. So it's a very small hand grinder, but the grind size is very flexible. You can grind from espresso up to cold brew. Even Turkish coffee, you can make Turkish coffee with this one. Okay. Uh, Salamat po. I actually won this apron on a competition sa school. So it was a latte art competition. So yeah. Okay. Okay. Okay, so we have someone watching from Hong Kong and Kuwait. Hi. Good afternoon. Okay. So we'll now proceed by doing the drinks. Okay. So at first we'll try to create an espresso. So when I create an espresso, of course you need an espresso machine, all of it from the parts, from the tamper, the portafilter, the grinder, and this is optional because some of us doesn't make espressos with a scale. The reason why I use a scale to ensure consistency of my shots, because without using a scale, whoops, without using a scale, you cannot ensure that the recipes stays the same from the grind size on how you distribute your coffee or how much coffee that you put it. You can never be so sure because just a 0.5 difference of a grind size can really change the overall quality of the cup. Okay. So we'll brew first the Vietnam medium roast, which is right over here. So normally, when you make a espresso, you want to have that recipe of 1:2 ratio. So that's 1 gram of coffee times 2 grams of water. So for now, I'll be using 15 grams of coffee, and then 30 grams of water. Okay, so to make an espresso, you have to first grind your coffees, then your dosage. That means how much coffee that you're putting at your portafilter. And then next is called distribution, meaning distributing the coffee grounds around the basket equally. So make sure that the coffees are equally around and completely flat. Okay, next is the last part is tamping. So when you tamp, make sure that the tamper is completely facing down to the ground, and then just push it down straight. So when you're making espresso, before making espresso, always flush your machine first. This helps to clean off the dirt that was inside the basket from earlier. Okay, so now we're making our espresso shots. As you can see, the shots should drop at the same time, because that ensures you that you've distributed your coffee nicely. Okay, so this how should a espresso looks like. That rich looking crema right over here, and then the parts of an espresso, there is also crema, which is the top part here, as you can see, the body, which is right below the crema, and the heart, which is located right below here. So always remember, before and after using the machine, make sure to flush every time so that the shower head keeps clean. Okay. So let's see if you have any questions. Do you have any questions as of the moment? Okay. Ano po brand yung machine by Sising? Okay. The machine is actually Breville Barista Express. Okay. How much po yung Comandante? Waldin Quinto. Okay, the Comandante is normally priced at 14 to 15,000 pesos because of how flexible or how versatile it can brew. Not only just for pour overs but also for espressos. Okay, so normally you have to drink your espresso shot fast because as it goes by, it turns into very bitter flavor. So this is what we call sensory, which we evaluate the flavor of the coffee as we pull our shots. Okay. Okay, it starts off with a roasted cashew nuts, and then followed by, next comes in brown sugar, caramel, and that finish off a hint of dark chocolate. Okay, this is how, when we calibrate, you have to really balance the flavors of the espresso from sweetness, acidity, and bitterness. So how would you know if there's something wrong with your shot? So first is when you taste something astringent. So astringency is like drinking sandpaper, like it really dries your palate, and it's kinda also a mix of acidity as well. To fix that, all you have to do just extract more coffee. If it's too harsh, like the ones that you can feel normally here in the throat, that means you have to lessen your shot. But that's not the only thing that you have to work on. You have to work on all of the factors that what you've been doing every time that you're calibrating. So not only the grind size, the dosage, but also um, the temperature of the water, or how hot the water is, because that really affects your coffee. Okay, so next I'll be doing is a Americano or long black. So this is a very popular drink to some people because Americano and long black is specifically just espresso and hot water. So for today, I'll be making an Americano. So when you know how to make an espresso first, making the rest of the drinks is gonna be easier. Because making an espresso is like the foundation of the basics of Barista 101. So if you know how to make espresso, then you're not gonna have much problem creating the other drinks as well. Okay, so I'll be using the same recipe of 15 grams of coffee, and then extracting 30 grams of water. So again, grind, dosage. Okay, so if you're curious what the grind size should look like, it should look like this. I'm not sure if you're seeing it right now. Yeah, the grind size should look like this, like powder. If you're feeling it like you're holding salt, you have to push the grind size a bit farther, because the coarser the grind size, the easier for the water to go through the coffee grounds. The finer the grind size, the harder it will be. That's why it's sometimes, diba, when you go to other coffee shops, you notice that when the barista pulls a shot of espresso, the espresso looks very rich. It looks very creamy. That's because they really check with their calibration. So again, distribute. Make sure that the coffee is equally distributed around the basket. Next is stamping. Okay. So one of your questions, I saw someone ask, what is from? Okay, from Carl Angelo Jusayan. What what should the grind size number in Breville? Okay, so that would depend on the coffee that you're using because the dark roasted coffees tends to grind easier than medium and light roasted coffees. So I would put it at maybe at number 2, number 3 can be. But for this one, I actually put number 1, the finest grind size that this machine can do. Because the roasting date, you have to really look also on the roasting date. Because one, the flavors goes up as it's freshly roasted. Then it always reaches its peak. Then after the peak, there's a time that it goes down and down and down. But that takes a long time naman. So if you have freshly roasted coffees, it normally lasts 10 to 14 days before it even goes to peak. And then normally a month after, then it starts to decline. Okay. Are we using... So from Carl, are we using single wall or double? Sorry. From Brian. Okay. So are you using a single wall or double wall portafilter? So it's only a single wall. It's not actually double. Because normally, diba, there are 4 types of baskets that Breville provided, which is the single and double basket, and then the single and double wall basket. For me, I would recommend doing the single wall because you have to really play with your temperature. And sometimes it says, diba, it automatically perfects your shot. Pero it's not. It's still the same. The difference is lang, it takes longer for the espresso to go down. Okay, so resuming. So resuming on how to make an Americano. So after you pull your shot of espresso, you have to put hot water up until where it fills up to the top. And then where it feels na papuno na siya, then that's the time you close the machine. Okay. 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 As you notice, diba, I kept adjusting the cup when the hot water goes down. The reason for that lang kasi is it tends to be messy. So, you don't want to have a mess every time, diba, that you make your coffee. So, always clean right after. And this is an Americano. So let's have the taste. What's the difference between the espresso and with Americano? So this how should it look like? So let's give it a taste. Okay. So normally when you drink diba long black, it's much more smoother if you're drinking with a dark roasted coffee. But same thing with medium roasted coffee, but what I like about drinking long black with a medium roasted coffee is that it has more of that milk chocolate flavor with also that brown sugar and that nutty flavor, which goes very well with origins like Brazil, Vietnam, Colombia, Costa Rica, those coffees that has more of a chocolatey and smoother mouthfeel. Okay. So talking about sensory, diba? I kept on talking about sensory. Maybe some of you might get curious what about sensory. So sensory is about what can you taste when you're drinking something or eating something. So for me, whenever I do sensory, it's about what my head thinks because that's the first thing that pops up in my head. So that's how I normally teach sensory to other people. It's not about what the barista tastes, it's about what you taste. Because we have different palates. So there are times that I may taste something different and there are times that you may taste something different. Best example is some people might confuse others with strawberry and raspberry because they have almost the same kind of acidity and sweetness. But the difference is which is bolder. Sometimes it's a bit confusing. So for you to practice that, all you have to do is buy some fruits and then try them on your own. If not, sometimes syrups can help. but you have to imagine the flavors of fresh strawberries because there are added sugars and syrups. And next is, this is what I normally do before. Parang whenever I taste food from restaurants or trying dishes from fine dining restaurants, I try to guess what ingredients that they used in order to create that dish. Parang that's also an exercise. Okay. So next. Okay. So next we're going to do coffee with milk. So normally the basic coffee with milk drinks are lattes, cappuccino, and flat white. So for today, I'll make a latte. So a latte is an espresso with steamed milk with a just right size of foam. A cappuccino naman, the difference between those drinks is cappuccino has more thicker foam. For flat white is very thin foam. It's like all steamed milk but with very little, very thin foam. Okay. So let's make a latte. So again, 15 grams. Okay. Same thing, basics of espresso, grinding, dosage, distributing, and pumping. Okay. So you can see the shots. I'll put it here. Okay. So that's done. Okay. Normally when you make lattes, you have to pull your shot and at the same time, you have to pull your shot and at the same time steam your milk. But problem is, that the problem is that when you're steaming first or pulling your shot first, it lessens the quality of the other coffees. Like for example, if you decide to pull your shot first, then steam the milk later, what's gonna happen is that the espresso might go bitter as time goes by. And if you decide to steam first to before pulling the shot, what's gonna happen is that the foam will disappear as time goes by, so not creating that latte art. So normally for me, I would pull my shot first because I want to practice my latte art skills as well. So in order to do that, I have to pull my shop first and then steam my milk perfectly, so that even with a very thin crema, I can also create a latte art. Okay, so normally you have to fill the milk up until to the spout of the pitcher. Any milk's fine though, as long as it's fresh milk. You cannot use almond milk. You cannot use soy milk because it would give something different with the coffees. So I have to flush my steamer again. So the problem for me with this machine is it's a single boiler machine. So I cannot steam and at the same time So I cannot steam and at the same time pull my shot. Okay, so what milk do I normally use is fresh milk. Fresh milk. So you can either use milks like Harvey Fresh. I would recommend Harvey Fresh because it creates that perfect balance of foam. What I'm using right now is Milk Magic, actually. I'm using Milk Magic for my milk today. But if you want the best milk for coffee, for me is Harvey Fresh, the most affordable and best milk to use with coffee. Yes po, I'm only using steam milk, fresh milk. You can also use full cream milk. Okay. Hi Henry, from Vietnam. Hope you're enjoying. Okay. Is it? Okay. Yep. So steaming is another skill that has that's not quite easy to master because it takes time for you to practice steaming. So the texture of the milk should look like that. It's like paint. So when you swirl it around, diba, it looks like paint. Okay. So I steam my milk thicker than the ones that I steam with Harvey Fresh because I noticed that this milk, the foam disappears quite early, so I have to pour fast. Okay, so in order to do latte art, all you have to do just pour from the start, pour away from the cup, and then as you see that the liquid goes near to the edge, then push. Just keep on pushing. Pag may lumalatag na foam, always keep calm because if not, it might do worse actually. Okay, so here is latte. Okay, so let's give it a taste on how it tastes like. Okay, for this one, it actually gives more of a milk chocolate characteristic. There's also a sweet caramel, and then there's this like dessert like brownies and nuts. Parang cashew nuts. I don't know if some of you might agree. Like, for me, I normally taste that whenever you mix milk with coffee, it actually makes it bitter. But the texture is much more creamy, and there's a bit of sweetness whenever you mix milk with coffee. But for me, I find it that it enhances the bitterness more. Okay, how will you from seizing? How will you? Okay, the time of steaming. Okay, normally when I steam for milk, for any kind of milk, you have turn off the steamer at the point that it's almost to the point now you cannot hold the pitcher anymore. If you follow the standards before, now you have to steam until the pitcher is so hot that you cannot hold it. That's actually wrong for my opinion because diba, uh, because one thing is this is metal. So what so the question is what heats up first? Is it the milk or is it the metal? So of course it's the milk inside that heats up first. So if you're using the metal as your guide in order to know what how long your should steam is, the it might your milk might taste burnt. How would you know if it tastes burnt? If there's a nutty flavor whenever you burn milk actually. So in order to avoid that, if you feel to the point that you cannot hold your pitcher, then that's the time that you turn off the steamer. Okay. So as you can see, 'di ba? As we go on with this Barista 101, 'di ba, we learn something new. Okay, so what's the time for steaming milk? From Edison Labrada Acevedo. Okay, so I steam my milk from 50 to 60 degrees Celsius. Over than that, it's too hot na. Because once you serve your lattes, the or cappuccinos or flat white, the drink should be drinkable when you serve to the guest. If you serve to the guest na it's so hot to the point na when it touches their palate, yung tipong napapaso sila, di ba, or yung nasasaktan, that means you have to work on giving the perfect temperature to the guest. But there are some guests who prefers na extra hot yung kanilang coffee. So if they prefer extra hot, then that's the time that you'll do the extra hot milk with extra hot water, or even putting the temperature at max so that it really satisfies them. Okay, milk ratio of milk for latte and cappuccino per cup. Okay, normally I don't change my recipes for latte and cappuccino. What I normally do is I change the texture of the milk because, 'di ba, when you're drinking lattes or cappuccino, normally it reminds you of the texture. Like for example, when you're drinking lattes, the texture is very creamy and it's also very milky. For cappuccino, it's more of rich and there's also creamy. So it's more of the textures. I normally do on textures. Okay, so what's the most important thing to create very delicious drinks? So if you're doing an espresso-based drinks, the most important thing is always have a best shot of espresso out of the hand. So because a good, diba, normally you hear this, good shot and bad shot. So a good shot of espresso, good drink. A bad shot of espresso, bad drink. Okay. So how would you know if there's something wrong with your espresso? Or how long? Okay. Ma-achieve ko ba yung espresso na katulad ng sa machine? No. Okay. So the stovetop espresso maker, I think that's the mocha pot. Am I correct? Miss Julie Margaret? Okay. So, the mocha pot kasi, that's actually a misinterpretation. You cannot create the same type of espresso as the machine would produce because it doesn't provide enough pressure to to even create that light colored crema that you normally see from the espresso. So what's gonna happen is kasi, diba, from the mocha pot, I wish I had my mocha pot beside me right now. Okay, so the mocha pot kasi, diba, you put it on the stove. Then inside that bottom part of the mocha pot, that's where you put your water. And then, diba, once you close the mocha pot, the water builds up pressure to the basket, which is located right inside the mocha pot. So what's gonna happen is that the taste is quite stronger, pero it doesn't produce much flavors as an espresso. So if this is what you're talking about, the stovetop espresso maker, it doesn't produce espresso as the same as the machine because it doesn't provide the pressure. Okay, so next is, how about French press? Okay, for French press, it's not achievable with a French press because okay, so for the French press, it's not also possible to create an espresso with a French press because when you're making a French press, normally it just gives more body. Diba? When you make a French press, you just pour the water over the coffee grinds and then leave it for 4 minutes and leave it to extract. So what happens is that when you're trying to make an espresso with French press, I wouldn't recommend it because once you're trying to push down the plunge of the French press down, your French press might break because the grind size resists the plunger as you try to push it down, and the pressure that builds up inside might break your French press. So as much as possible, try to first look for something on the internet like AeroPress. AeroPress can actually create an espresso at the same time. It's possible. Next is Compresso, which is like that very small brewer that you have to push down. And then lastly is Flare Espresso, which also the same thing, builds up pressure that you have to push down in order to create an espresso. Okay, coffee machine, the capsule type. Okay. So this one, that it normally depends on the grind size actually. There are times that when you have the capsule type, sometimes the grind size are too coarse, even it says espresso. So normally if you want an espresso, diba, with the capsule type machine, so normally you can taste it na. Like if it reminds you of the espresso that you normally find in a coffee shop, then it's a good buy. Then if not, you can actually adjust it your own, make the grind size finer with a reusable capsule. But problem is lang, it may take time to extract. Okay, is there a good cheap espresso machine with less than 5K? Yes, there actually is, but it's not as the same as this one. And it doesn't also give the same quality as the Breville Barista Express, but you can get a decent tasting espresso with less than 5K. You can normally find those on MK Kitchen, which is located in Pasig. There's also at Mega Mall. That ranges prices 5K below. Okay, next, tip for French press. Tip for French press from Nicole. From Nicole. Okay. Tip for the French press. Okay, so French press lang. Okay. What should be done para hindi siya sobrang muddy? Okay. For me, when you're making a French press, after when you plunge the French press, diba, before you serve, try to strain it using a V60 filter, like this one. Like this one over here. Like this one over here. A V60 filter. Because if you don't have a filter, normally, diba, before you serve your French press, there's always the granules of the coffee grinds goes to your cup. So if you don't want to have that, you can either strain it with a paper filter to ensure na wala talaga pumasok na grind size sa cup nyo, or uh, if you don't have a paper filter, you can use a strainer with a fine mesh in it, so that most of the grounds will be just on the strainer. Okay, what's the model of your Breville espresso machine? From Henry Sumeran. It's Breville Barista Express. Okay, so it's a Breville Barista Express. So as you may notice, I made some modifications with my machine. Like for example, I don't use the tamper provided. I don't normally. I also changed the pitcher that I normally use. It's not actually a Breville machine. It's not actually a Breville pitcher. It's actually my pitcher that I bought from from beverage conventions, because the size of the pitcher also matters when you're steaming. Kasi the steamer doesn't steam as powerful as the machines that you normally find in a coffee shop. So you have to also study the sizes of the pitcher. You have to observe. Okay. Next question. Can we make espresso from any coffee beans? Okay. Yes, you can make espressos with any coffee beans from any origin. No matter if it's Arabica, Robusta, Excelsa, or Liberica. You can make espressos with any kinds of beans. Okay, next. Lelit. I haven't experienced using a machine with Lelit yet. But let us see. Sir, may pagkaiba po ba ang mga filter? Yes, actually, may pagkaibang effect ang mga filter. The V60 filter, there's a difference between a paper and a stainless filter. The stainless filter gives more body because the oils of the coffee goes also to the cup when you're using a stainless filter, because it doesn't stay on the filter as much as the the paper filter. For paper filter, it's much more cleaner and it's much more smoother because the oils of the coffee and also some of the grind size will stay with the paper filter. So that's why it's much more cleaner. So yun yung magkaka-effect sa kape. So metal filter brings more body, and for paper filter, it creates more a cleaner taste. Okay, next question. Just brought an espresso machine. Can you show me how to make a basic that tastes special? Okay, so Carlwin, can I what's the brand of your espresso machine, if I may know? Okay. I haven't also encountered a Don Lim espresso machine, but I'll look to it later. Okay. So to create a perfect espresso machine, all you have to do is make the grind size fine. So if the grinds should be consistent like powder texture. If not, you have to adjust the grind size to finer. You have to adjust the grind size finer. Next is the extraction time. Extraction time standard is 30 seconds. If not, you can adjust the extraction time from 18 to 30 seconds. You can play with those times. Okay, so next. Next question. What other options if there's no espresso machine? Okay, so if you don't have any espresso machine, you can do pour overs. Number one, it's actually very affordable to buy. You can buy those on malls. You can also buy them in kitchen stores. So, if not, there's also French press. French press is the second one. Okay, so if you don't know what a V60 looks like, this is a V60. So as you can see, it's letter V and it's 60 degrees around. So this is what you normally see in some other coffee shops because this provides a balanced flavor and at the same time with a cleaner mouthfeel. Okay, so next question. Default ba yung internal grind size, which is 6? Okay. Yes, I normally use a 6 grind size on my Breville if it's a dark roast coffee. If not, like for example, a light to medium roast, I normally push the grind size up until to the finest grind size, which is 1. Okay, mocha pot naman. Okay, as I said earlier, you cannot make an espresso with a mocha pot because it doesn't provide the same pressure as the machine. So, what happens in a mocha pot is that, diba, when you put your water inside here, it builds up the pressure up until to this basket. Normally, I would use a medium fine grind size, the same grind size as pour over. Because if you use a finer grind size with a mocha pot, it turns very bitter. It's like you're drinking ash. So you don't want to taste that. So that's why you have to really adjust your grind size. And then once the pressure builds up, it goes out here, and then it automatically fills up the whole vessel. Okay. So where can we study online barista? Okay. So as of now, wait a minute. Okay. So for the online study of being a barista, just give me your location and let you know, and I'll give you a recommendation where to study barista online. Okay, for me, I actually studied barista by actually traveling to other coffee shops when it's not pandemic yet. I was able to enroll in one barista one-on-one class, and it's actually quite fun. Kasi you're able to practice your sensory and also your skills then. Okay. Next. Okay, so aside from Breville, if you want to get a higher quality machine, I would recommend getting a machine like Astoria, Profitec, a single group Profitec or single group Astoria or La Marzocco. Those are a much more greater quality machine. Okay. So if you want to learn more, we will try to post schools where you can study more about coffee. Okay? So as for the coffee press again, is there to be specific grind to be used? Okay, that's coarse grind size. The texture where it's like rock salt, that's a perfect grind size for French press. Thoughts and views on profilations of pop-up coffee shop or kapihan sa bangketa. Okay, proliferation. Okay. Okay, so normally sa ganyan, it's actually quite good. Ano siya, it's not your parang tawag dito. Normally the coffees there are parang staple kasi nasanay ka na rin din sa ganun lasa, yung parang yung paet, yung caffeine kick niya normally with those kinds of businesses, parang it reminds you na lang of so much. Okay. From Anna Noel, are you giving manual training? Okay. No. As of now, no. Actually, because it's still on pandemic and I'd rather do things muna online. So I'll keep doing live online classes and will answer all of your questions. I can promise you that. Okay, how much usually Barista 101 class? Okay, normally it's between 16 to 20K because you're doing the class for the whole day. It's not only a 2-hour session. It's actually a whole day session for 3 days where you can practice with anything you like. Okay, so I'll be doing a free online class every week starting from now. So if you want to attend more, you can just pop up You can just search on Gian's Coffee Cup and we'll do a live video on every Saturday at this time. Okay, I'll be also mentioning with different kinds of coffees. So if you want to know more about coffees, please attend on the sessions every week. And I can assure you I can offer different kinds of coffee to feed your curiosity about other origins and other blends. Okay, so excuse me for a bit. Okay. Okay, so to end this Barista 101 class, so I hope you learned all something today. So I'll be summarizing just all. So just remember the history of coffee, which is found by Caldi because of the way he observed his quotes. And then next is how to make the drinks. Of course, the espresso, diba? Always grind, dosage, distribute, and tamping. I hope you enjoyed this class today, and I hope I was able to feed your curiosity about coffee. And I hope that you may try other coffees as well. Okay, other types of brewers you may encounter it as we go by. Okay, we'll do coffee appreciation on some of the days. Then I'll keep you posted. Okay, thank you so much. Have a nice day.